Hello, my name is Cynthia and thank you for joining me on this video. Today we are continuing our Bible story series and we're looking at the story of Joseph today and we have titled it, Can You Forgive a Betrayal? Can you? We're going to look at the story of Joseph to see how Joseph forgave his brother for what they did to him. Has someone offended you, done something so bad to you that you just cannot seem to bring yourself to forgive them for what they've done? And you're just holding on to that hurt, you're holding on to that thing that the person did to you or that so many people did to you, and you just cannot seem to forgive them. We're going to look at the story of Joseph and we're going to learn today how to forgive, how to let people go, how to free people when they offend you, how to move past it. We're going to look at the story of Joseph and we'll be reading Genesis chapter 37 to 45. So it's a long one. So chapter 37 to chapter 35. 37 to 45, beg your pardon. We're going to look at bits and pieces here and there. So we're not going to read the whole chapter from 37 to 45. It's a long one. I've broken it down to the points that we're going to be discussing today. So let's read chapter 37, verse 2 to 11. So 37, 2 to 11 says, "This is the account of Jacob and his family. When Joseph was 17 years old, he tended his father's flock. He worked for his half-brothers, the sons of his father's wife Bilhah and Zilpah. But Joseph reported to his father some of the bad things his brothers were doing." So do you have a brother or a sibling that just cannot keep to themselves? When you do something wrong, they are the first one to report you to your parents. Joseph was that brother. Okay, so his brothers didn't like him for that. But let's continue reading. Verse 3 says, "Jacob loved Joseph more than any of his other children because Joseph had been born to him in his old age. So one day Jacob had a special gift made for Joseph, a beautiful robe. But his brothers hated Joseph because their father loved him more than the rest of them. They couldn't say a kind word to him." That's amazing. They couldn't say nice things to him. They couldn't say a kind word to Joseph. Verse 5 says, "One night Joseph had a dream. And when he told his brothers about it, they hated him more than ever." Verse 6, "Listen to this dream," he said. "When we were out in the field, tying up bundles of grain, suddenly my bundle stood up, and your bundles all gathered around and bowed low before mine." Verse 8, his brothers responded, "So you think you will be our king? Do you actually think you will reign over us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dreams and the way he talked about them. Soon Joseph had another dream, and again he told his brothers about it. "Listen, I have had another dream," he said. "The sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed low before me." This time he told this dream to his father as well as his brothers. But his father scolded him. "What kind of dream is that?" he asked. "Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow to the ground before you?" But while his brothers were jealous of Joseph, his father wondered what this dream meant. So Joseph was an interesting young man. He was loved by his father. This is the beginning of the story. So Joseph, we know that he had dreams, okay, and he didn't keep these dreams to himself. He told his brothers. And where we just read said that the brothers hated him for having this dream because the dream meant that the interpretation meant that they were going to bow before him. He was going to rule over them. But they didn't just hate him because of that dream alone. They hated the way he talked about it. So maybe Joseph definitely had, some sort of sprinkle of annoying attitude around him, the way he carried himself and all of that. But that was not a yardstick for his brothers to do what they did to him, right? So Joseph had this dream. The first dream, he said, when the field were gathering grains and everything, tying up our bundles, and my bundle stood up and your bundles bowed before mine. One would think that after his brother's response, their body language and everything, what they said to him and how they responded to the first dream, that Joseph would keep the second dream to himself and not tell anyone. But no, Joseph had the second dream and he went right ahead to say, guys, hey, listen, I've had another dream again. And this time it wasn't just grains, okay? The moon, the star, the sun, they were all bowing down to me. So what are you going to say about that? So Joseph had an attitude, I would say, it is not so much of, he was just, how would I say it? He was just a young boy who had, you know, a playful, or I would say a, because when I was reading this story, I was thinking, picturing it in my head, like how was Joseph reporting this dream to his brothers that really made his brothers hate him? So, and they said they didn't just hate him for the dreams alone, but they hated him because of how he told the story of this dream. So you see, Joseph was hated, you know, and he didn't ask to be hated. He just was living his normal, ordinary life, and he was just doing the things that he thought was right. So if his brothers were doing something that their father had said not to do, or they were doing something wrong, he would run along and go and tell his father. And, you know, his father loved him because of that. Okay, so this boy, he was not just born to me because he was born to me in my old age, but he loves me. You know, he comes to me, he reports to me what his brothers are doing. So the older brothers did not like him. And so we're going to go straight to the points of discussion. The first point is Joseph was hated because he was loved by his father. That was just the reason why his brothers hated him. They hated him because his father loved him. And this is a call to parents out there, you know, don't make your kids feel like you love one of them more than the other. You're supposed to love your kids and show them love equally, so that they don't have sibling rivalry, you see, because it's not healthy when you're in the home and your children are against each other just because of the love you show towards one. So as a parent, it is very important for you to watch your kids very closely, see their strengths and see their weakness, harness their strengths. Okay, don't just say, okay, this is the one that I love and you're going to do right by that one and leave the others hanging. Show love to your kids, all of your kids. And this is why they hated him. They just hated him because his father loved him. And Joseph did not call or ask for this love. He was just loved. But then they hated him because of that. I mean, that's absurd, you see. They didn't hate him because he had much money than they had, or much flock or whatever, or that he was wealthy or anything like that. They just hated him because he was loved by his father. All right. So the second point is Joseph was sold to slavery by his brothers. So they sold him to slavery. Now, Joseph had this dream he told to his brothers, and they're like, see, this guy is going to one day rule over us. So let's just do away with him. Let's get rid of him. So one day his father sent him on an errand to go and look for his brothers. They had gone to the bush to feed the flock. And the father said to Joseph, go and see how your brothers are doing. And Joseph, a happy, jolly fellow, went to the errand that his father sent him. And when the brothers saw him coming from a distance, they were like, see, Joseph is coming, because they recognized him because he was wearing the coat, the robe that his father made for him, the coat of many colors, right? And they are like, he's coming, let's do away with him, let's just get rid of this guy so that he doesn't come and rule over us. I mean, he's loved by our father, let's just get rid of him. And that was exactly what they did. So Joseph was coming, and the brothers recognized him from a distance that, hey, Joseph is coming, let's do away with him. And so they connived among themselves to throw him into a well that was just beside them, you see. And when he came, they threw him into that well. And one of them said, what are we going to gain if we throw him here? You see, let's just kill him. Matter of fact, that was the first thing they said, let's kill him. And they're like, we cannot just kill him. You know, he's our brother, he's our blood. So let's read Genesis 37, 26 to 28. It says, Judah said to his brothers, what will we gain by killing our brothers? Would have to cover up the crime. Instead of hurting him, let's sell him to those Ishmaelite traders. After all, he's our brother, our own flesh and blood. And his brothers agreed. 28. So when the Ishmaelites, who were Midianite traders, came by, Joseph's brother pulled him out of the cistern and sold him to them for 20 pieces of silver. And the traders took him to Egypt. So they were saying, okay, let's kill him. And one of them said, what are we going to gain if we kill him? He's our blood. He's our own blood. He's our own flesh. Imagine, they realized that Joseph was family. They realized that killing him was going to make them look bad. It was not good. It was sin against God and it was sin against man, right? So they recognized that he's their flesh and blood. He's their brother. But yet they tried to kill him. They were conniving to kill him. And so one of them said, Judah said, instead of us to kill him and just lose on all grounds, let's just sell him to slavery. So they sold him to slavery. They first threw him into the cistern, the pit or the well that was there, and they brought him out and sold him to slavery. That was painful. I mean, watching your flesh and blood, like they said, he's our own flesh and blood. We're from the same father. Watching your own blood brothers, your own family, betray you like that must have been heartbreaking for Joseph, must have been really painful for him. But yet, once we once we go through the whole study for today, you'd see that Joseph did not put these things to the account of his brothers. He just let it go, So in this situation, you are in a situation where someone has done so many hurt to you, so many wrong things to you, and you're thinking to yourself, this person is my best friend, or this person is my family. How could they do this to me? Hey, look at Joseph's story. Joseph's brothers were going to kill him. They were going to kill him. Matter of fact, the reason why they threw him into the pit was, okay, if we leave him there for so many days, wild animals are going to come and kill him, or he's going to starve to death or something. But their intentions was evil. They were going to kill him, right? And so they now sold him to slavery, selling an Hebrew boy to an Egyptian trader to Egypt for slavery is almost the same thing as killing the person, because the culture of the Egyptians and the culture of the Hebrew people were very different. And the distance from where they would take Joseph to where he was going eventually was a long distance. So many things could have killed him on the way. He could have died of thirst because they were going to bind him in shackles and chains and everything, and he was going to walk the way. So he wasn't going to be carried in a caravan or on a horse or something like that. He was going to walk that distance, on foot. So it was really painful what Joseph went through. It was painful, heartbreaking, watching and listening to your family members say so much hateful things towards you, and you are right there. He was there when they were debating to kill him or to sell him to slavery. Joseph was there. He could hear them. That must have been really heartbreaking. That must have been really painful to hear and experience, right? So it was really painful. It was really painful for Joseph. Let's look at the third point. It says Joseph feared and honored God with his attitude and with his body. So now Joseph had been sold to slavery, but because he had the fear of God in him, he gained favor with God, because when he got to Egypt, they saw that there was something different about him, the way he carried himself, the way he comported himself, he had the fear of God. And so when his master's wife, Potiphar, he was the slave to Potiphar. When Potiphar found out that there's something about this boy, he has a special grace in his life, So Potiphar made him the head of, administrative affairs in his home. So Joseph gained favor with Potiphar, taking care of Potiphar's home and everything. But Potiphar's wife tried to have sexual relations with him. And Joseph was like, I cannot do this against my master. And above all, it is a sin to God. I cannot sin against God with my body, and violate you, my master's wife. So let's look at Genesis 39, 6-9. So Potiphar gave Joseph complete administrative responsibility over everything he owned. With Joseph there, he didn't worry about a thing except what kind of food to eat. Joseph was a very handsome and well-built young man, and Potiphar's wife soon began to look at him lustfully. Come and sleep with me, she demanded. But Joseph refused. Look, he told her, my master trusts me with everything in his entire household. No one here has more authority than I do. He has held back nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How could I do such a wicked thing? It would be a great sin against God. So Joseph said, if I do this thing you're requiring of me, it's not just a sin to my master alone because of all these things that he has given me, all these benefits that I'm enjoying from his home, but it is a sin against God. I cannot sin with my body and sleep with you. Joseph had every right because he has gone through a lot. You know, he had every right to have his way. Now he was, somewhat having it easy in life, being that he was the head of administrative affairs in this man's house. So he could have said, okay, well, let me just get away with this. I mean, she's the one coming to me. I didn't go to her in the first place. He could have said that. But no, he said, I cannot do this against God. You know, I cannot betray my master's trust. You know, sometimes when you're in a position to compromise, do you first think about how, what God's perspective is on that matter, or you just go right ahead? You know, it's what everyone is doing, so I might as well do it. Joseph feared God. He respected God. He honored God with his body and with his attitude. You know, Potiphar's wife was like, she kept on pestering him for days. If you read the whole chapter, you would see she kept on disturbing him. You know, and the Bible says he was really very handsome. So he could have used all of that, character or attribute in him to say, well, I'm a fine boy. I might as well just get away with this. Besides, my master is not home. He could have said that. He could have done that. Again, he was betrayed by his brothers. So he could have had that attitude to say, well, someone did it to me. Someone sold me here to slavery, to a foreign land, in a foreign country. Mind you, their culture was very different from the Hebrew people. So that means it was a new language for Joseph. Joseph was about 17 years old, thereabout, when he came to this land. So he had to learn everything from scratch. It was difficult for him. But he could have said, well, I was brought here unfairly, so let me get away with what I can get away with. You know, it will be justifiable. But he said, no, it's a sin not just against my master's trust for me, but it's a sin against God. I cannot betray him, you see. So when you are in a position to compromise, because of what you've done, you tell yourself, well, someone has done this thing to me. I might as well just do it to this other person. I was reading through something on the internet, and someone was infected by a HIV, and she's like, well, I didn't ask for this because I was raped. She said she was raped. And she said she got infected through that. And so she decided to go about sharing the virus to just everyone she finds. And she gave a number of the people she has infected with it. She was raped. So that was her excuse. I was raped. I didn't ask to be raped. I didn't demand to be in that situation. So I have every right to do the same thing to somebody else. Joseph had the right to say that. I was brought to Egypt unfairly. I was sold to slavery. I didn't demand to come here at a tender age of 17, when I was already used to the custom and lifestyle of my people. I was brought to this place so I can defy my master's wife or do whatever I want because someone has hurt me, someone has betrayed me. Joseph could have said that, but he didn't. Instead, he said, it's a sin against God. So I'm sorry, ma'am, I cannot. So because of this, Joseph landed in prison again. Because there was a particular day he was doing his chores and Potiphar's wife came and said, well, sleep with me. And he said, I'm not going to sleep with you. You are my master's wife. I cannot sleep with you. And so she was forcing him. She was dragging him, pulling him, tugging on him. And so he pushed her away and tried to run. And so as he was running, his coat, or whatever they used to wear back in those days, fell off the ground. So he ran out naked. And so the clothes he was wearing was now with Potiphar's wife. And she held it and called for everyone in the house. She screamed and people came to her rescue. And she said, Joseph tried to rape me. But we know that that's not the story, because she tried to rape Joseph. And when Potiphar came back, he found out about what had happened, what the wife told him, and he just threw Joseph into prison again. So Joseph really had it tough. He really had it difficult. He had every right to have a different attitude. He had every right to be wicked or mean to people. He had every right, because he had gone through a lot for something he didn't do. He didn't rape her. Matter of fact, he was telling her, I cannot do this against my master. But yet, he was thrown into prison for what he didn't do. Okay, so when you are in a position to compromise your faith, to pay back what someone has done to you. You know, it says, someone did it to me, like the lady on the internet said, someone did it to me, so I'm going to keep doing it to other people. Do you have that attitude? Do you have that attitude? Do you just go about doing that? And if yes, it's something you should think about. So we're going to look at the fourth point. It says, Joseph was merciful towards his offenders and he forgave them. Joseph was merciful towards his brothers. So Joseph found favor with the prison guard where he was thrown into prison after Potiphar had thrown him into prison. Because of the fear of God he had in his life, because he respected God, he honored God, he just kept on having favor with people everywhere he went to, right? And so in the prison guard gave him control over every other prisoner that was in the prison. And so two of Pharaoh's seven men, the chief baker and the cupbearer, they were thrown into prison for something they did wrong to Pharaoh. And so they had a dream one day, and Joseph interpreted their dream, told them one was going to be killed and one was going to be restored back into the place of honor where he belonged. He told them it was going to happen in 3 days, and this eventually happened. Long story short, you should go and read the story. Joseph gained favor again with Pharaoh, okay, because after like 2 years, Pharaoh had a dream and he needed an interpreter. So the cupbearer remembered that, hey, I had a dream about something, about the situation I was in prison and how you were going to restore me. And someone interpreted that dream for me, and the person is still in prison. And Pharaoh's like, I need someone to interpret my dream, because none of the magicians and every other astrologers or whatever they call them that were serving the king at that time, the wise men, as they would call them, that were serving the king back then, could interpret the king's, which is Pharaoh. None of them could interpret Pharaoh's dream. So Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and Joseph came and interpreted the dream, and it was very accurate. And he found favor with Pharaoh, and Pharaoh restored him to be the governor of Egypt. So the whole of Egypt, he was going to be the second in command, and everything was in his affair. He interpreted the Pharaoh's dream to mean that they were going to have 7 years of famine and 7 years of plenty. So during the 7 years of plenty, Pharaoh should appoint someone who would, see to the affairs that food is stored in a warehouse, kept for many years, so that when the famine years, 7 years of famine comes, they would have food for supply for the whole country. And so Pharaoh said, well, there's no other person who can do this except you, because you are the one who interpreted the dream, and I see that you have the hand of God upon your life, so you be the governor. And so that's how Joseph became governor. See, his dream of being a ruler has now finally come to pass. And this was Joseph was now 38 years old. 38 years old. So imagine the dream he had when he was 17 and the fulfillment of the dream, 38 years old. That's a long time for someone to wait for the manifestation of their life. But Joseph kept the right attitude. He didn't compromise, even when he had the opportunity and the right to. He did not. He feared God and he respected God. So Joseph was merciful towards his offender and he forgave them. And we're going to look at Genesis 45, 1 to 8. So his brothers, the years of famine had now started. And so food was scarce in all of the land, not just in Egypt alone, but the famine spread all over the world. And so his brothers, okay, were now coming to Egypt to buy food. Their father sent them to come buy food for the family so they don't starve to death. And this is where Joseph met them, right? And they bowed before Joseph. They knelt completely before Joseph, and they were just worshiping Joseph when they came to buy food. And Joseph saw them and he recognized them. But they didn't recognize Joseph. They didn't even realize that the fulfillment of the dream that Joseph had was now coming to reality. You see, it pays to be patient with God concerning everything that he has said concerning us. And so let's just read Genesis 45, 1 to 8. It says, Joseph could stand it no longer. There were many people in the room, and he said to his attendants, "Out, all of you." So he was alone with his brothers when he told them who he was. Then he broke down and wept. He wept so loudly the Egyptians could hear him, and word of it quickly carried to Pharaoh's palace. Verse 3 says, "I am Joseph," he said to his brothers. "Is my father still alive?" But his brothers were speechless. They were stunned to realize that Joseph was standing there in front of them. Verse 4, "Please come closer," he said to them. So they came closer, and he said again, "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into slavery in Egypt. But don't be upset. Don't be angry with yourself for selling me to this place. It was God who sent me here ahead of you to preserve your life." Can you just imagine? Joseph is saying, don't be upset. Don't be angry at yourself for selling me into slavery. It was God who brought me here. This is the point where Joseph could use all the authority he had. Remember, he was the second in command of Egypt. Everyone feared and respected him. But Joseph is telling his brothers, don't be angry. Don't be upset. I mean, this is where Joseph could have just taken, some of his soldiers and called them, just tell his brothers to lie flat down and flog the hell out of them. He could have done that. I mean, they would not even know why they are being flogged because they didn't recognize him. He was the one who recognized them. He could have done that. But Joseph just had the right attitude. He was telling them, don't be angry. God brought me here ahead of you to preserve you, to preserve your life because of this season of famine. Verse 6 says, "This famine that has ravaged the land for 2 years will last 5 more years, and there will be neither plowing nor harvesting." Verse 7, "God has sent me ahead of you to keep you and your families alive and to preserve many survivors." So it was God who sent me here, not you. And he is the one who made me an advisor to Pharaoh, the manager of his entire palace and the governor of all Egypt. Joseph is saying to them that you are not the one who sent me here. Yes, the circumstances that brought me here, that made me come to this place where I am, was not pleasant. I was sold into slavery. I was betrayed. I was beaten. I was all of that. But the end goal, the big picture, is God was trying to do something. God was trying to preserve the lives of all these people, not just the family of the Hebrews alone, not just the Israelites alone, but every other many survivors that came to buy food for Egypt. Joseph was looking at the bigger picture. He said, yes, the circumstances that brought me here was not a pleasant one, was not nice, but I see the hand of God here. So sometimes when we go through all this betrayal, all these situations in life, we are tempted to feel very depressed. We are tempted to feel very down. We're tempted to ask ourselves, why did it happen to me? It could have been averted. Why did God allow it? Sometimes God is trying to prepare us for something bigger. Sometimes God is trying to preserve the lives of many in the future. And so what it looks like it's a betrayal to us, what we are going through in a moment, might just be that we are saving the life of someone in the future, like Joseph was saying here. He said, don't be afraid, don't be angry, don't be upset. God was the one who brought me here to preserve your lives and your families. I mean, Joseph could have just sent his soldiers to follow them to Canaan, rather, where they were coming from, and just call all the families of his brothers, put them in jail, like just jail them. Joseph could have had that attitude. But no, Joseph saw the bigger picture. Instead of holding onto the hurt and pain that he went through, he was saying, no, this was God's plan. This was orchestrated by God. This was what God wanted. And he gave me the strength to go through all that. So yes, the betrayal was painful. Yes, being in prison is not pretty. Yes, but God gave me the strength to go through all of that difficult times. God gave me the strength to be able to do all of those things that I did. It was painful for Joseph. Don't ever think that it was easy for Joseph, because Joseph cried. There were times where Joseph could have asked himself, like, why is all of this happening? I didn't rape my master's wife, but yet I'm thrown in prison. That could have broken him down. That could have made him depressed. But Joseph was looking at the bigger picture. He was saying, no, there is something here. I think God is trying to teach me something. God is trying to do something. So rather, when we go through a betrayal, instead of holding on to the hurt that the person has done to us, let's forgive them like Joseph did. Someone will say, Cynthia, you don't know what you are saying. Do you know what people have done to me? Yes, I have had my own fair share. Just while I was reading and preparing for this, it's like something just cleared in my mind last night as I was reading. Someone had offended me, a member of my family, and this person, it wasn't just me alone that this person offended, a lot of us, okay? And I'm one person that I forgive very easily. I let things go very easily because, I mean, why not? So as I was reading, and it just flashed back to my mind, because each time I'm talking about this particular person in my family, I just get so wound up. I just get so, I don't know, I just don't like the feeling that I get. And God was trying to tell me that, the Holy Spirit was trying to tell me that I think you are holding on to something here. You've not forgiven this person. And I'm like, this person did something so bad. I mean, they've been doing it for years. We've just been taking it in. It's time it stopped, right? And God, it's like the Holy Spirit just opened my mind, opened my eyes to see the part where Joseph said, don't be upset, it was God who brought me here. And it was like a voice asking me, did his brothers ask for forgiveness? Did you read any part where they said, Joseph, please forgive us? No, they didn't say that. But yet Joseph forgave them. Joseph didn't forgive them in this moment. Joseph forgave them like before they came to Egypt to buy food. Joseph had already forgiven them. And God was telling me, you need to forgive this person. You need to let this person go. You need to reach out to this person. And so that's what I did. What this person did, I cannot say it because, I mean, it affects not just me alone, but every other person. And I don't want to bring people's private business online. But it's really painful, really hurtful what this person did. And I forgive this person genuinely, and I let this person go because the Holy Spirit was telling me, reach out to this person. Matter of fact, the Holy Spirit had been telling me to reach out to this person for months now. And I just brush it up like, if anybody is to reach out to anybody, it's that person, not me. But I did what I was told to do yesterday, how I felt led to do yesterday, and I reached out to this person. Someone might say, well, Cynthia, some things that I've gone through is worse. You could say maybe you were raped, or you had a family member betrayed you. I have also had that. While I was young, I think I was about 8 or 10 years old, I was raped by a family member, by my uncle. And I was living with my grandparents at the time. I feel someone needs to hear it, okay, so that you can understand that forgiving someone doesn't just sets the person free. It sets you free. It makes you free. It's like something is lifted off your chest. Because when you are holding on to something, you're holding on to unforgiveness, you are also in prison because you are watching that person who is in prison. I mean, just literally think about a prison. When people are in prison, you have to, have guards in prison to watch those people in prison. So it's just different perspective. You are on the free side, they are in the locked side, but you are all in prison together because you are watching them. So when you forgive someone, you let that person go. So you are free. You are not there to come and be watching them, holding on to that hurt that they've done to you. You let them go. You just forgive them. And it's not easy. It's not easy. It's painful. Like we saw here, Joseph cried. Because of time, I don't want to make this video so long because the chapters are really long, but I encourage you to read chapter 37 to chapter 45. You see the story. All right, like I was saying, I was abused by my uncle at a very young age. I didn't ask for that, but my uncle abused me severally. I could remember one time I was sleeping and he just would wake me up and have his way with me. Or sometimes there was a particular time he sent me on an errand to his friends, and I went there, but the friend was there, and when I got there, the friend came out, locked the door, and just left. And the next minute my uncle came in, locked the door, and had his way. So that happened when I was a child, 10 years old. That's pretty young. And my uncle, I wasn't just living with him alone in the house. I also had to face him in school because he was my teacher at school. So it was a really terrible time in my life because it affected me psychologically, mentally, physically. I was sick. I didn't know who to speak with. I didn't know who to talk to about it, right? And so when I would go to school, I was just not interested. It affected my relationship with people. It affected how I relate with people, right? And so all of those things happened, and not one day did he come to say, many years after, or, even while in that season, to say he was sorry. And so many years later, my family and I were just gisting because I'm very close-knitted with my sisters, particularly my family in general. We're very close-knitted. And so it just came up, and I told them, and they're like, what? Why did you not tell us and everything? Long story short, they told me to reach out to my uncle and everything so we can get him on tape, recorded, admitting to what he did so we can use it against him in court and everything. And I called him and said, I wanted to talk to you about something. And before I could even say anything, I told him, I want to talk to you about what you did to me while I was still young, while I was a child. And before I could even finish, he said he understands that he has been trying to reach out to me for so many years, but he couldn't bring himself to reaching out to me to apologize. And I told him, I said, I already forgave you. You see, I already forgave you. I'm just calling you now, to actually talk to you about it because I realized we never talked about it. I had forgiven him. I had let him go. And my point is this. My uncle didn't ask me for forgiveness. Matter of fact, this happened while I was a child, when I was 10 years old, thereabout. But I reached out to him in 2019, and that was when he apologized for what he did. So my point is this. He would come to my house even many years after the abuse. You know how parents would tell you to go and serve your uncle, when you have guests and all of that. I would do all of that, and one of my sisters was asking me, how did you do that? How did you, because this uncle of ours still kept on coming to our house, visiting us and everything after I had left my uncle's house. How did you bring yourself to laugh with him, to gist with him? Because I would do that when he would come to visit. We'd just talk in general. My mom would say, go and serve him food. I would serve him. And so my sister was asking me, how did you forgive him? How did you do that? She's like, it's difficult. And I realized that I couldn't have done that by myself. It was the help of the Holy Spirit. It was God who was helping me. But I made a resolve that I'm not going to hold on to what he had done to me. I was not going to hold on to that. So someone might be saying, I don't think I'm ready to forgive someone what they've done to me. I'm saying to you, let that person go. It will help you to be a better person. So when you let that person go, you are free, because the Bible say, I think I'm not sure of the verse now. It says to forgive others just as God has forgiven us. He said to let them go. Say to forgive someone. There's a part of the Bible that said when you remember that you are not in good terms with someone, you remember that someone you're offended with someone or something, go and meet that person and you're about to pray. Say leave your place of prayer, go to that person and try to make peace with that person. God does not like it when we hold on to hurt. God does not like it when we hold on to unforgiveness. God does not like it when we hold on to pain. It means when we hold on to these things, we are in bondage, okay? And the enemy can use that against us. Jesus is the perfect example. The people who were, cursing him out while he was carrying the cross and while he was being nailed on the cross, the people who were throwing spit at him, the crowd who were shouting and just saying all kinds of insults to him that day, they were probably part of the people he fed with the 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes. They were probably there when he fed the 5,000 people. There were probably some of them who he healed their children or healed their family members, but yet they wanted to kill Jesus. And while Jesus was on the cross, hung on the cross, he kept on praying to God, do not hold this sin to their account. And this is exactly what Joseph is saying here. Don't be upset that you sold me to slavery. It's part of God's plan, to bring me here, to be in this situation so that I can help you and preserve your life. And it was the same for Jesus. It was part of God's plan to restore humanity back to him. It was part of God's plan to bring back man to the place of redemption. And so Jesus was not looking at the pain that he was going through. Yes, it was painful. Yes, it was a betrayal. But Jesus went through all of that because he needed to bring us back. He was looking at the bigger picture. The bigger picture was salvation. And for Joseph, the bigger picture was for him to be the governor of Egypt, and so he can preserve the lives of many people when the season of famine would start. So whatever you are going through, it's not a waste. God will use everything for his glory. The pain, the betrayal, everything, it's not a waste. All we just need to do in those seasons of difficulty and pain is to get closer to God. Get closer to God, be in his presence and ask him for help. It's not easy. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, it's easy to forgive. It's not easy. By your natural 5 senses and by your natural emotions, by your natural self, you cannot do it alone. You cannot do it. You cannot forgive someone. But when you let the Holy Spirit, come in, you say, Lord, it's painful, but I'm going to forgive this person. One of the things I started doing is to pray for that person in my family who I said offended me. So I started to pray for that person. You don't want to pray for that person. You want to curse them. You want to say all kinds of words to them. You want to, physically hurt them sometimes. But you cannot do that. What you need to do is to go and fight it in prayers. Kneel down or stand or whatever you have to do. Sit, pray for them. Pray for them. Let God help you to let them go. And when you do, you will get the victory and you will be free from bondage, because when you are holding on to hurt and unforgiveness, you are in bondage. So it's not just the person who hurts you, that is going to be dealing with guilt, okay? But you are not going to be happy if you hold on to that. So let them go. Whatever they've done, tell the Holy Spirit to help you to forgive them, to let them go, and the Lord will help you. All right, thank you so much for watching this video. See you on my next one. Bye.